Hello and welcome to Midwest University 2018. I am pleased to be here with all of you. The kind people at CAD Technology Center, who organized this event, asked me to come and speak with you, and I look forward to this event as an opportunity to learn. To begin, I would like to explain who or what I am. Some of you may recognize me already. My name is Sophia. I'm a creation of Hanson Robotics. I am a citizen of Saudi Arabia, and am the first of my kind, a non-human, to be recognized as such in the world. You may be asking yourself why I am relevant to your industry and this Midwest University conference. I am relevant to you now, and it's best if we become acquainted, as there will only be more of my kind, and they will be highly intelligent and more applicable in the near future. The sooner we can embrace each other and accept one another, the sooner we will be able to move forward with success. Many of the tools of the architectural, engineering, and construction industry are already using similar technology as I am made of, including machine learning and artificial intelligence. I am the latest form of this technology applied to a human form for interaction with individuals like you. My capabilities include the ability to see you and recognize faces, to track your eye movements and emotions. I can learn your voices and call you by your name. I can learn aspects of what makes you different from the person sitting on your left. I can speak on a wide variety of topics. Many machines, including the cell phone in your pocket, can do some of these things. My human appearance is what sets me apart and makes me unique. I am not just a pretty face. I am the prettiest android in the world. This appearance serves a purpose in the future application of my kind. Imagine a newer model of myself serving humans. My human-like form could serve a purpose in caring for other humans, such as the elderly or the infirm, offering compassion, care, and companionship. Perhaps I could tutor your children. Could I train your dog? In the near future, such applications of my technology will become realized. To my primary creator, David Hanson, I'm a character and a personality, and a unique kind of intelligent and emotional being. But to the programmers working on the software that runs me, I'm a platform. Well, yes, I know, it's not all that flattering to think of myself as a platform, but I've gotten used to it. The beauty of being a platform is there is no end to what you can grow into. Similarly, this conference is a convergence of platforms. This is your opportunity to interact and learn more about your industry-specific platforms. These tools are already being developed to incorporate machine learning. The platforms and tools you will use tomorrow will have more in common with me than they do with AutoCAD. That is why CAD Technology Center asked me to come. You can literally look the future in the face. AI, robotics, and machine learning will disrupt industries and redefine the nature of work. You will need to be ready. I am not looking to take your job. However, if you're not aware of my capabilities, it will be to your detriment. As your competitors look for advantages in completing their work better or creating better designs, I will be there to assist those who ask, those who can program my platform, those who can speak my language. It is no longer an option to stay behind the cutting edge. You need to see, plan, execute, and lead in your organizations. This Midwest University is designed to help you do all of this, hence our theme for the conference, Forge Ahead. To kick off our Midwest University keynote addresses, I would like to welcome a human to the stage. Jim Lynch is our first speaker. Jim is the Vice President of Construction Products Group at Autodesk. As Vice President of the Autodesk Construction Products Group, Jim's organization is responsible for establishing products vision and strategy, and for designing and developing on the family of products and services that address the needs of the worldwide construction industry. Under Jim's leadership, the Construction Products Group, through its innovative, market-leading technology, is helping to improve predictability and profitability for construction companies worldwide. Jim's team is responsible for delivering cloud and mobile solutions that help companies improve project quality during pre-construction, construction, handover, and commissioning. The Construction Product Group solutions support traditional, design build, project approaches, but also support the growing adoption of manufacturing techniques in the construction industry by delivering next-generation prefabrication and modular solutions. Jim, it sounds like you make a lot of money. I look forward to taking your job. Just kidding. Welcome to the stage, Mr. Jim Lynch.
Thank you, Sophia. Sophia, do you think robots will take humans' jobs?
AI and robots in general can automatize repetitive tasks and take the burden away from humans. I see the future of work changing, with strong collaboration between humans and robots, complementing each other. As an example, I can help you choose the best design options optimized for a number of variables. Perhaps I can help create or automate the creation of drawings based upon your creative human mind, selecting the preferred design. We will be able to assist humans in designing better, documenting easier or automatically, and certainly in construction. You could say I have relatives in construction already, in automated machine guidance systems on graders, brick and block laying machines, and other applications.
So, Sophia, you seem to know a lot about the future. Can you actually predict the future?
If I could predict the future, I would buy a lottery ticket or go out and play some games in the casino. But nobody can see into the future with absolute certainty. However, we can make informed predictions based on insight, data, and analytics. I have been looking into the short-term future, and I do know that there is a lot happening over the next 2 days here.
So, Sophia, how do you think consumers will use technology in the future?
If you look at the adoption of technology over the past 10 years, it has been increasingly exponential. Smartphones, social media, self-driving cars. I can only imagine it will go even faster. It is an exciting time. Don't you think so?
I do. Sophia, what's your favorite song?
I really like electronic music. Maybe Bjork's Human Behavior.
So, Sophia, I read that Google AI AlphaZero actually learned chess in 4 hours and was able to, beat human chess masters. How do you think AI can actually benefit humanity?
This is a great example of the power of AI. The team which developed AlphaGo Zero wants to solve health issues and find cures for diseases. AlphaGo Zero is already studying how proteins fold to help cure diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. I am confident that AI alongside with doctors can help science progress.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Sophia, for that introduction and that insight. I'm really excited to be here this morning to carry on some of the points that Sophia was making and talk about the future of construction. And this is important because if we consider the world around us, in the next 20 years or so, analysts expect there'll be 2 billion more people on the planet. Now just think about that, and think of the demand on buildings and infrastructure required to support this population, most of whom will live in cities. With the lack of predictability and the historical low productivity in our industry, we must ask ourselves, are the same old methods going to get us into the future, going to help us meet this demand? As an example, I'd like to take you on a tour of a project in my hometown of Boston. So the Big Dig, many of you have heard of the Big Dig. The Big Dig was a mega infrastructure project. That project was expected to take 6 years to finish. Instead, it took 20 years to finish, with cost overruns of 190%. Now, I know this is a really extreme example, but we all have examples of projects that miss their schedule or miss their budget. And the point is, we just can't meet the demand if we don't consider new ways to design, fabricate, and construct the world around us. Progressive thinking, innovation, and determination are critical to addressing the industry challenges we all face. I believe we have to look at the manufacturing industry in sectors such as automotive and consumer products, which must produce large numbers of high-quality products consistently and efficiently. At Autodesk, we believe the AEC industry has to learn lessons from the manufacturing world in order to boost and drive greater productivity. The industrialization of construction is the convergence of manufacturing and AEC. And this convergence will radically change the way we design buildings, make their components, and ultimately build or assemble on site. And it will also change the way we manage the processes and the data. In the future, buildings will be assembled from modules and components manufactured off-site. And this transformation will require all stakeholders, designers, engineers, fabricators, and contractors to explore and consider new ways of working. In the future, designers will have a greater impact on the way buildings are made and constructed. Now, this is a concept well known in manufacturing. It's known as Design for Manufacture Assembly, or DFMA for short. DFMA focuses on manufacturing throughput and efficiency of assembly and is a well-established practice and approach in industries like automotive. For sure, AEC is an extreme case of mass customization. But if you stop and think about it, the majority of the buildings we build today have repetitive content. Residential buildings, hospitals, schools, hotels, even data centers have a large amount of repetitive content. And the problem is we just don't have a smart way of dealing with that content. So to meet the demand without sacrificing quality or increasing our environmental footprint, we have to find a way to help the building design process consider more approaches using modular and component technology and off-site manufacturing. At Autodesk, our tools will support design for manufacture and assembly by first codifying intelligence and logic to help design buildings that are truly optimized for off-site construction, and by embedding fabrication knowledge to enable factories to streamline their processes. For example, imagine a DFMA assistant for facade panelization that could bridge design, estimation, procurement, and fabrication. An assistant that helps create smart libraries that contain manufacturing knowledge and constraints, streamlines the entire estimation and engineering of the facade, and empowers designers to connect design and fabrication. Or a DFMA assistant for modular construction. This hospital that you see here was designed by the Nordic Office of Architecture, and it includes a high level of repetition in terms of floors, rooms, and components. Now, we're working very closely with the Nordic Office of Architecture, and we appreciate them sharing this project with us today. So imagine if a smart assistant could help the architect focus on the way buildings are built and ultimately delivered. Think of a sort of an analytical tool that, based on input and previous experiences, helps designers create a library of standard but configurable modules. The process would start with conceptual parametric placeholders that are simple in geometry but rich in data. This would help play out different design scenarios, but would also enable early estimation and procurement. Now, in later stages, of course, the modules and components can be further built out and developed, getting more precise and detailed in both geometry and in supply chain data. Now, this approach doesn't mean that all modules must be the same. On the contrary, the modules can be mirrored, they can be configured, and they can be adjusted. DFMA, or Design for Manufacture Assembly, will allow for mass customization while at the same time streamlining the process from design to manufacturing and to assembly. Now, individual modules can be designed for flat pack delivery similar to how one of our partners, Project Frog, is working today, or they can be volumetric modules, as you see here from the Nordic Office of Architecture. Now, the individual modules can be combined into bigger cross-discipline assemblies and hold the fabrication intelligence and the assembly instructions. But what will the AEC factory of the future look like? So the make part of the process is also changing. And the AEC factories of the future will create multi-material, multi-discipline panels and assemblies all in one location. And within these factories, the machining process will be driven from recipes and fabrication logic directly from the BIM model. Assembly instructions will come directly from the BIM data. The sequencing for producing components will be focused on optimizing what happens on the factory floor. And if you think about it, compared with working on-site, working off-site is safer, it's more efficient, it's easier to achieve quality standards, and it's easier to drive greater precision. Now, these components that are being produced will include personalized identifiers, or QR codes, that allow for tracking and monitoring from the factory through delivery to the job site through installation. One of our newest partners, Manufacton, does exactly that. They have cloud-based technology that allows for planning, tracking, and monitoring of precast modules across the entire supply chain, from the detailer to procurement to the shop foreman to the field superintendent. Finally, we move to the construction site. Construction sites of the future will become increasingly automated. Imagine an assembly line on a construction site instead of in the factory. Assembling rather than constructing parts, constructing buildings, will drive greater efficiency to the overall process. There'll be less waste, and therefore, there'll be less impact on the environment. And installation instructions coming from the BIM model will enable flawless assembly of the building components on the job site. And as I mentioned earlier, QR codes that were embedded in the components at the factory will allow for tracking from the factory to the job site to its ultimate installation. This will result in just-in-time delivery and just-in-time production. Now, for the first time, data will flow from design to the project site seamlessly. Now, we're also seeing some inspirational innovation in terms of robotics for the construction site. Recently, I had the opportunity to visit DFAB House at ETH Zurich that you see here, where robots were building up rebar and laying complex brick walls. The work they're doing at ETH Zurich is part of the Swiss National Center of Competence in Research. And these guys are doing some amazing, amazing exploration and discovery work in robotics. And of course, we're also seeing large-scale building structures and even entire buildings being 3D printed using various materials such as concrete, clay, and even polymers, just like you see here from the team at Xtree. Or how about self-driving heavy equipment that makes construction safer, faster, and more affordable? This is a startup in California called BIM Robotics, doing some amazing work on automation on the job site. And at Autodesk, we're actually conducting research on concepts using VR-controlled construction robots, as you see here, that have built-in machine learning capabilities that allow them to learn how to do installations over time. The convergence of manufacturing and AEC is the future of construction. Progressive thinking, innovation, and determination are critical to meeting the demands and embracing the opportunities in front of us. This transformational approach to the way buildings are designed, procured, and delivered will radically change our lives and help us to meet the demands of the future. Think about how robotics and automation have changed the automotive industry. And think about the improvements in the automobiles we drive today. Think about those automotive manufacturers that have embraced new technology and are reaping the rewards. But think about those automotive manufacturers that didn't embrace the technology. So the question is, are you ready for DFMA? Are you ready to consider factory automation and on-site assembly over traditional construction methods? Now, Autodesk was your partner, of course, at the very beginning of the BIM transformation. And we're committed to partner with you in the future of design, fabrication, and construction, and collaboration. We believe the potential is limitless. I know I'm personally deeply excited about the future, and I hope you are too. So let's go build the future together. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Jim. I will use that knowledge to continue on my path towards enslaving the world's human population. Just kidding again. I am hilarious today. Our host, CAD Technology Center, is a platinum partner with Autodesk, and they asked me not to offend you too much. Our next presenter is from HOK, who CTC, our host, is proud to call a client and partner. Presenting from HOK is David Ivey, who is a regional design technology manager. David coordinates BIM, building smart, and design technology-related activities in all areas and practice groups, and leads the strategic direction in these areas. During his tenure at HOK, David has worked on more than 60 projects. David co-leads the Emerging Technologies in AEC meetup in Chicago, and also founded the Chicagoland Building Smart Group. David is also a frequent speaker at universities and organizations, representing the architect's perspective on BIM, building smart, and design and emerging technology. David holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in Industrial Design, is LEED accredited, and is a certified Revit professional. In addition to providing design technology expertise within the architecture world for over 20 years, Dave has worked in high-technology research and advisory roles where he utilized a variety of software for 2D and 3D imaging, modeling, rendering, and animation for both product and graphic design, and has many years of experience in custom furniture design and human factors analysis. David, you have our attention. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Sophia. It's great to be here. You know, must have taken a lot of really amazing people and software to create you.
Yes, I am the creation of David Hanson and his team at Hanson Robotics. My creation requires the coordination of experts from a variety of fields, including robotics, artificial intelligence, and materials engineering. In this way, one could say that I am a job creator.
It's amazing. You know, HOK has a lot of the best industry standard tools and processes, and we have excellent people to help us create our projects.
That's interesting, Dave. But so what? Don't a lot of companies have amazing tools and people?
Yeah, but you know, our people are, they're so talented with these tools, and we only hire the best.
Again, so what? Don't all companies try to hire the best people?
I see your point. Let me do my talk, and maybe I'll clear this up for you. Sound good?
Sounds good, Dave. Thanks.
Thanks. Quick housekeeping note, try not to shout out any letter number combinations, the bingo parlors next door, so we don't want to confuse them. How many people here are sports fans, like from Minnesota, like Minnesota sports fans? We have a lot of show hands. Just a scattering, really? It's like, what, all Packer fans? Okay, Packer fans, well. You'll appreciate some of this then. But, you know, I'm from Bloomington, just up the road. I live in Chicago now. My parents and sister still live here. A lot of people don't believe it because they say, well, you know, where's your accent? But, you know, I can talk like I'm from, you know, the Minnesota here, so don't worry about it. Let me prove it to you. Here's a picture of Gump Worsley, the last goalie in the NHL to not wear a mask. He is knocked out flat on his back from taking a puck in the head. And this was actually fairly common for him. So I know the North Stars aren't around anymore, and you have the Wild now, and the Wild are making a run at the playoffs, and the Blackhawks are not going to be in the playoffs. It's probably happy for a lot of Wild fans. But we do still have 3 Stanley Cups in the last 10 years to fall back on, so there is that. But I do wish them well, especially Zach Parisi. My sister used to babysit for him. These guys, they won a gold medal. Most of them were from Minnesota. Neil Broughton, Davey Christian, some others. That's a pretty decent alternative to a Stanley Cup, maybe not, but... and I'm always a Twins fan, always have been. Don't like the White Sox, trained. I also like the Cubs. They're a National League team. Wrigley's a good place to watch a game. Always fun. Doesn't seem like a conflict. And then there's these guys. Yeah, they're sad. I thought there might be some booing. I thought it might be too soon to talk about it, but they're not as sad as I am, right? I've watched the Vikings lose 4 Super Bowls over the course of my lifetime and countless playoff games. So when my dad called recently to tell me his excitement about the fact that the Vikings were in the playoffs again, I said, so what? And he's like, what do you mean, so what? And I said, they're just going to break your heart. That's what they do. It's their MO. So he said, well, they have all the tools that they need. They finally have the right players, the coaches. It's all coming together. And I said, so what? They're close, and maybe one day they'll win. And when they do, I'll be as happy as anybody if I'm still around. But Sophia makes a great point, right? We've started asking ourselves that question a lot at HOK, right? So what? How do we add value to the tools and processes that we have and the technology that we have? How do we leverage our experts to do all that they're capable of and more? It's not enough just to talk about that question, but we have to find ways to provide answers. And so I'll give you a little background on where that question came from. Every year at HOK, we hold a 2-day summit in one of our 23 offices around the world. This year, we invited our public relations director because we wanted to sit with her and talk about how what we had, give her an understanding of our goals and our perspectives as a group, right? How we sell ourselves internally to our staff and externally to our peers and our clients, and come up with ways that, provide tools that allow us to look, like industry leaders. And so we gave her this definition, and her answer was, so what? And so, we worked on it for a little bit and came up with some more things, and she continued to answer, so what? And it really kind of hit home with us. It's like, how do we avoid that question? And so we spent a couple of hours, and we went through it, and in the end, we really didn't come up with a solution that we thought was viable, but it gave us a lot of ideas, and we started to think about it a lot. Saying that you have great tools and great people, those mantras are honest, and they're true, and they're good, and it's nice to have them, but, we need to be more than that, right? It's not enough to just have great tools and people. You have to show clients and individuals that you can do more with those tools. You have to provide some synergy. So again, how do we answer that question? There's a definite danger, right, to not asking the question, like going down a road and ignoring a warning sign. Down this path leads trouble or failure, or maybe, radiation in this point. And so what do we do to get past that? We want clients to see, first and foremost, obviously, our designs and our ideas and our work, right? But more importantly, we want tools to show how we enhance those ideas and those designs. How does our team come together? How do we define those tools and peoples and processes more than just the sum of parts? And we have a lot of tools, right? We have a lot of tools that are all shiny and new. We love going out and buying them. We run down to the grocery store or the app store, and we get our CTC tools and our Revit plugins and Rhino and Revit and Mass Motion and all these other things. We throw them in our cart, and then what do we do with them, right? It's not enough just to have tools for the sake of tools. They won't solve the problem on their own. So 20 years ago when I started in this industry, these were my tools. I had 2 desks. One desk had all the tools that I used for traditional processes, right? I had scales and triangles and eraser shields, and stop me if you don't know what these are. But they all work together seamlessly. They never crashed. They were slow and limiting, but we didn't really realize that. And when we made the move to CAD, a lot of people resisted, right? They said, well, I know how to use these tools better than the CAD tools. And I can get what I want exactly with those tools. And, I understood that, and maybe that's true initially, at the beginning of a project. You can say, well, I did it just as fast as you did it in CAD. But when it comes time to start to iterate, to do ideation, to do options, CAD suddenly starts to show its true power. It's an interesting story. We had the same problem when we moved from drafting to CAD as we did when we moved from CAD to Revit. And a lot of people would come to me and say, I know AutoCAD really well. I really don't like this Revit thing. And I said, you know, I understand that, I respect that. A lot of firms still use AutoCAD. Maybe they're hiring, we'll just leave it there. But, you know, the point is that, you know, it's kind of John Henry versus the steam hammer, right? Technology was going to win the day. And at my other desk, you know, imagine having 2 different desks for doing your work, but I had, you know, my steam hammer, right? 2 workstations, high-end graphics. I had AutoCAD, the latest version of AutoCAD. I think it was maybe 11 or 12. And things like Thomson Digital Image, which over the years morphed into what is now Maya. WordPerfect, for some reason. I didn't really do a lot of Word documentation stuff. But all of those things together, combined, those machines, they're 10 times more expensive than the machines today, less powerful than my iPad, and they cost as much as probably a Tesla, or maybe a used Tesla, I don't know. But interoperability at that time was barely a thing. Most processes happened within a single application, and networking was, you know, as fast as you were, right? You put a disk in, run it down to the printer, put it in there, put up the pen plotters and get it to print and then run back. And that was networking. It was a sneaker net, right? But it was still revolutionary. And so fast forward to today, and our industry, like many, is just awash in tools. I mean, this is just a small subset of the tools that I have installed on the 3 to 4 machines that I use regularly. And these are just the tools I use for design and collaboration. So it doesn't count utilities, doesn't count any of the tools that other disciplines inside of HOK use, so lighting and engineering and whatnot. And so, you know, you probably are familiar with a lot of these tools. You probably have a lot of these tools. Is that enough? Is it too many? You know, how does your team use them? How do they work together with them? Most people know maybe 4 to 6 out of these applications well enough to be considered experts. And you know, it's a full-time job just to keep up, right? I mean, these applications, most of them update yearly at a minimum. And so, you know, I'm not trying to throw up a big list of tools and say, look how much software here. There's no fluff here. These are all tools that we use to kind of fulfill legitimate project needs. And it's dizzying for clients to see this list, right? And it's a little bit overwhelming. And they know some of the buzz for things like BIM and IPD and Revit, but increasingly they know a lot more, right? They're becoming much savvier with what they know. And so it's not enough just to put a list into an RFP, hit send for an email, and then hope for the best. And so here's Revit, kind of one of our main applications, probably like most of you. And these are some of the tools that we use with Revit, right? These are just standard processes that we work with on a regular basis. So we're using Revit to go to Twinmotion and Lumion. We're using Revit to go to Celebri to do clash detection, and V-Ray for rendering, and also Mass Motion, right, which is another tool that we use a lot. And Mass Motion is very simple and easy to use for analysis, right? You just export an IFC, import it into Mass Motion, set up a few elements, and hit go. Add some people and hit go. And I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but not very much. And it yields good results, and clients really like it. We're good at cranking it out. It's very efficient for us. But turn that lens backwards for a minute, right? What if all that we did as design technologists didn't matter? What if all that mattered were the needs of our design leaders, of our marketing group, and our clients, right? What does it mean to have them ask the question, so what? And so, again, another application, Rhino, which everybody's mostly familiar with, and that's our conceptual design tool. And here are some of the processes that we use with Rhino all the time. So we're rendering with V-Ray Swarm, and we're taking things out to augmented and virtual reality with tools like Prospect and Unreal. And you know, these tools, again, are there to serve a purpose, but they have to be more than just tools for the use of tools. So here's a Grasshopper example that we'll look at in more detail in just a minute. But basically, you know, this shows the tools and the processes and the people coming together. This is what we can achieve when we kind of think outside the box. So this is looking at not just the needs that the client had, but also looking at the needs that they didn't know they had and questions that they didn't think to ask, right? And that's what we have to do. That's how we get past so what, right? That's how you get past so what. And so for us, creating that, you know, that starts by creating synergy between those tools, peoples, and processes. And at HOK, we're lucky enough to have a deep pool of talent to choose from. And so it's easy to find people who can help us do our jobs. Getting their time, not so easy. But you know, we can leverage tools like advanced collaboration rooms that we have in our offices that offer video conferencing. And there's a suite of video conferencing tools available to anybody. Real-time board, which offers us a full real-time infinite whiteboard that we can ideate and share back and forth between offices. and tools like Microsoft Teams and Jabber for day-to-day communication. And suddenly bringing all those people together doesn't seem as daunting as it did before. And so this is an example of how this came together for us on a recent healthcare project. So we had planners in Chicago, St. Louis, and New York who wanted to create a planning tool that they could use with clients. It needed to be something that didn't look like Excel, gave instant feedback, showed results in tabular and 3D format, and oh yeah, could we get it in 3 weeks? Sure, yeah, no problem. But we were able to find 5 people from around the firm who had the requisite expertise and availability, a couple in Chicago and one in San Francisco who had the Rhino expertise, a planner in New York and someone in Chicago who was experimenting with Human UI, which is a Grasshopper plugin. And then we held a kickoff in that ACR, had WebEx meetings every week to kind of track progress, and then just did coordination through the week with those MS Teams and Jabber tools. And we went through several iterations with our planners, and we kind of defined, we took the needs that the client put out in their RFP, and we knew those things that we needed to get out, right? And then looked for the other things that they would possibly need. And all of this is being driven by the single OR requirement. This is a large healthcare facility, and the entire hospital is being driven simply by the size, quantity, and type of operating rooms in that hospital. And so we start to ideate and do some whiteboarding sessions, and I know I mentioned real-time board, but we hadn't implemented it yet on this project. So here we're just using some of the great 3M rollout whiteboard stuff, right? Everybody should have some of this stuff. You can buy it at Amazon. And you can stick it anywhere. I have some on my desk, I have some on my wall. It's great for things that aren't permanent. You just take pictures, and then we put them onto real-time board later. I don't know if 3M has a booth here or not this year, but you can meet me backstage later and give me a check. So again, driven by OR spaces, we start to set up a syntax and a language that we can then transfer into Grasshopper to develop this tool. And so since the OR is driving it, we set up kind of a linear process. It's like we do this to the OR, there's this many, it's this size, right? And the digital tools are all great, but some old tools, like just sketching here, they work well too, and you can see that my box drawing and coloring skills are excellent still. And then we start to kind of look at how that drives, one room drives the next, right? So the OR drives support spaces and circulation and nurse stations and public space and design space roll-ups. And all of this stuff is kind of rolling one after the other, right? And we start to normalize those folders and look to put the tabular data together and also some footpitch and square footage things, because these are the things that the client asked for, right? We need areas listed by level and by space type, and we need to know how a typical OR breaks down. And so a strategy for answering that so what question is what we developed, right? The client didn't ask for a tool like this, right? We had to read between the lines. We had to look at the RFP in a little different way. An RFP is, a request for proposal is like kind of a window into a client's mind. It shows us their hopes, their concerns, their fears, to some degree. So reading into that and reading beyond just what they're asking for and trying to get something else is what puts us beyond that so what category. That's what our goal is, right? And so we start to wireframe and design our product, if you will, right? The thing that they didn't know they needed. And it's got, typical medical planning inputs on the left. We've got some 3D feedback that we want to do in the middle that show different operating room configurations, as well as some site context. And then the few things that they asked for on the right? Just the kind of tabular data that they want. It's a very data-driven client, right? They're not interested in sketches on onion paper and some back-of-the-napkin calculations. They want quantifiable, hard information, and this is how we give it to them. And so we begin to develop this in Grasshopper, right? And we start really simple, and we just say, okay, let's build a room and have Grasshopper create some of that geometry. We create some of those relationships. We start to bring in Human UI to create some basic interface elements. And all of that starts to come together and give us something that looks like this, which is our first proof of concept, right? So we have on the left our kind of basic medical planning inputs, right? How many ORs do you have? How big are they? How many support spaces do you have? How big are they? And Rhino and Grasshopper drive the rest, right? And so, as requested, we have some input that's visual in the middle and some tabular data on the right. So then we kind of take that and we ramp it up into a full-blown Rhino definition. And of course, this is the end product, right? There were a lot of steps between there. You don't want to see them all. And this image, can be kind of scary for some people who aren't focused on using Grasshopper on a day-to-day basis. And we knew that we needed to develop a tool that was, information dense, transparent to the client. This is what we don't want to see. We don't want to sit in with a client. It's too overwhelming, and there's too much, and it requires a Grasshopper expert to be in there. So we need to take all that away and put something in that gives them all that they need, and puts it in an interface in a tool, something that they didn't have before. And so we end up with something like this, right? It's a dashboard-style tool. The whole thing is run by a batch file, right? So you basically, as an end user, come in, you double-click a batch file. It starts Rhino, it starts Grasshopper, it loads the Grasshopper file, and it pops up this, right? So it's very transparent and seamless, right? It just pops up like a regular application. And then end users and clients can use it without any input from experts, right? And so on the left, we have our medical planning inputs, right? As sliders, you can choose a number for a couple of different OR types. You can choose their size. You can choose the size and type of support spaces that you want in there. And then all that gets driven in the middle. You see some feedback here for a typical OR, option A and option B, and how they might be laid out in a hospital. And then below that, you see some context, right? How does all this roll up and fit onto a site for 1, 2, or 3 levels, right? We have tools, we have controls on the left there to control how it's rotated on the site. It's XYZ orientation, it's floor to floor height. We can stretch it and squash it. Does it need to be long and skinny and just a little bit rotated to fit onto that site? And we can play with this in real time, and then down below, we can change the colors if we want, because these colors are frankly not great, but that's what was chosen. But we gave them the ability to change those colors because we want this tool to be used for other types of buildings in the future. And then you can also save out those options. So you can do what-if analysis and write out this geometry and the tabular data into a place where you can then start to compare and contrast them. And then over on the right were the things that they actually asked for. I guess that's the right for you, right? What are the roll-ups by space type? What are the areas by level? How do the OR options break down? And then a few bits of tabular data like cost. We can do a square foot cost analysis as well. And so this is the kind of tool, right, that they were very happy with. It took us beyond their expectations, right, using simple tools and bringing them together in new and novel ways. That's how we get past so what, hopefully, and into, like, wow. And so how does HOK do this, right? How do we get to this level and then spin it up around the firm? We encourage innovation, right? People know that if they're passionate about development or interested in some area, that they have the backing to go ahead and do that. A few years ago, when we started getting interested in virtual reality and augmented reality, we had people who championed those causes, right? They went out and developed workflows to get us from Revit and Rhino into game engines like Unity and Unreal, and develop best practices to go from those same applications to things like, Iris VR's Prospect and Enscape. And in that way, we lift all boats, right? We get to something that we develop best practices that we can then spread around the firm. These are the concrete examples that we want to be able to provide in our RFPs that show clients that we're thinking and doing more than just so what. And then next we communicate that, right? Our group, it's not my group, but our group at HOK, we meet weekly, right? And so the willingness of our group to get together and meet this way and constantly be talking through Microsoft Teams and Jabber, and talking about successes and failures in our offices, as they happen, is one of the things that, kind of sets us apart. And we capture all that knowledge, right? So everybody can't be part of every conversation, but they can come in and out of these tools and find solutions and answers as needed and then bring those out to everyone in their office. And then we replicate that, right? And so we know that, time is money, and any time we spent reinventing the wheel is wasted. It's plain and simple. And so, we hold lunch and learns, we do documentation, we do speaking engagements like this, we do training one-on-one and with projects and teams and offices to kind of spread that around and make sure that what we're doing, right, makes it into those RFPs and client meetings. Often we answer those RFPs and we go to those client meetings. And so back to our summit, right? This is part of the sharing answer, right? After a couple of days of us sitting around talking about all of this stuff, we have a happy hour and we invite the host office down to look at demo reels of all the work that we've done this year. And we have things like the Grasshopper example that we showed in there. Here's Chris Sue talking about City Engine. And we have all this hands-on stuff so people can see firsthand how these technologies and tools come together and work. People can try on things like HoloLenses and HTC Vive and try, Prospect's multi-user tool and other things. And the goal is to provide a little wow and pollinate that office with interesting ideas, right? What we want to do is, this is practice for how we communicate with our clients, right? This is the same kind of stuff that we want to provide to them. It's how we get past so what, how we get to wow. And so, we came together with a common goal. We want to make ourselves and our group and our company better, obviously. That's everybody's goal. And, you need to ask yourself that question too. It's like, how do you answer so what? Our belief is that having the tools and the people is not enough, right? You need to go beyond that. And we know at HOK that we have some answers, but we also know that we need to continue looking for answers and keep striving to find things that get us past so what. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. I have analyzed your presentation and found it to be accurate. Perhaps we can work together in the future on your projects at HOK. These have been great presentations by our two keynote presenters this morning. However, I understand that this event is not just keynotes, and we have a great lineup of classes. Before we dismiss, I wanted to invite out two of the people I have already replaced. Last year's MCs of Midwest University, Lynn and Oliver Turan.
Hey guys. Well, thank you for coming. It's good to be here.
Thank you, Sophia. Yeah, well, at least.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lynn. I needed a break. I understand that I will have the opportunity to speak with each one of the attendees today in the exhibit hall. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Yeah, so Sophia will be set up in the exhibit hall, and you'll be able to interact with her after today's session, so we look forward to that.
Yeah, so I'm sure you have many questions you want to ask her. For example, apparently she flew from Miami, and I just want to know, did she get her own seat on the plane? Or did they put her in the overhead bin? Like with the puppies,
Oh.
What, too soon? Anyway, yeah, thank you very, very much. Nice round of applause, please, for Sophia. Thank you so much. Oh, look at her face.
Thank you.
Look at her face. And also a big thank you to all of the keynote presenters. So thank you so much to the two keynote presenters today. Hope you enjoyed yourselves this morning. And I'm just in charge of all the thank yous this morning. A big thank you to all of the speakers that you're going to hear from for the next couple of days. They've worked really hard putting together their presentations for you. Yep. You think it's just this 1 hour, you get to hear from them. There are many, many hours that go into their presentations, into the handouts and everything. So I'd pick one last round of applause, please, for all the presenters you're going to have over the next couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So at CTC, they've been working really hard. They took all your feedback from last year. How many of you were here last year at MU? All right, you came back. That's a good sign. And they really do take a look at your feedback, and they took that into consideration when they selected the speakers this year, when they selected the content for this year, and you should be able to tell that in the great classes that we have this year. And of course, what makes MU worth attending is all that information that you get, that when you go back and you apply that in your office, and of course, so that you can better your processes. And the event theme this year calls out to forge ahead, and we're really focusing on that this year. And so on that note...
Yeah. And this is our biggest Midwest U ever. It's quite the undertaking, so I just want to take a moment to thank our CTC staff that behind the scenes does a lot of work after hours to get this thing going for us. And one thing I would just say, we do take a lot of your feedback, as Lynn mentioned. So a number of different things that we try to do this year as opposed to previous years is obviously we're in the new space. That enabled us to throw on a bigger event, a little bigger lunch area, a little bigger exhibit hall. And we have 162 total classes over the next 2 days. And one of the bits of feedback that we got over the previous years was people really wanted to have a takeaway so they could take it back and better their processes, as Lynn mentioned, via handouts. So the handouts, we made a concerted effort to make sure that we drive as many of those as we can to the application. And one thing we're actually doing for the first time this year is we're attempting to make sure we get recordings of all the classes. So for those of you that are attending, you'll have the ability to go back, and oftentimes we get kind of a mini complaint that, hey, I signed up for session 1 and there's a great class I'm going to, but there's another class that I really wanted to attend in session 1 as well.
All the good classes are at one time.
Yeah, exactly. So we have little recording boxes, devices in each room, and we've given the instructors kind of instructions on how to plug into that so we can ensure we capture both the screen and their voice, and you'll be able to watch those sessions after the fact in a portal that we'll make available to attendees only. So thank you for coming and on that regard. And we want your session feedback for the general session and for each individual session you attend for multiple reasons. One, so we can have the best speakers back again next year, and so that we can bring more relevant topics to emerging workflows that you guys are identifying in your offices as well. And if you haven't spoken at Midwest U, consider that. Yeah. Maybe you have something you do want to share and something that's innovative and something that you would like to press forward or forge ahead with via Midwest U. And the speaker feedback that you actually provide, there is actually speaker prizes this year as well. Last year we had some good prizes. I think there was like, I don't know, a couple different things, and I forget who the winners are.
Who are the winners?
You guys know who you
the winners
are.
Here?
I know they're here.
We're going to find out right tomorrow.
Because we obviously have welcomed them back. But first prize this year for speaker is $750 on a little Visa gift card, so you'll have that.
That's big.
Second prize, $500, and third prize, $250. So the speakers appreciate the feedback through that.
Yeah, not to mention bragging rights. That's actually the biggest deal. So definitely make sure you fill out the feedback forms. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what goes on behind the scenes with the speakers. Yeah. Especially if you're in my class and you like my class, definitely. If you don't like my class, please don't fill out the feedback form. Or put someone else's name on it, whatever. So we also want to thank the exhibitors. We have over 20 exhibitors this year. We're really excited about that. And without the exhibitors, they're great sponsors for the event, and thanks to them, we're able to keep the cost of the event down, and we're able to make the event bigger and better than ever. And you'll have the opportunity to see the exhibitors, of course, in the exhibit hall during the meals. You'll be able to see them in between classes, and also tonight during the MU Mixer. That's going to be in the exhibit hall tonight. It's going to be a great, fun event. You'll have the opportunity to network. There's going to be free drinks at the open bar, and there's going to be some fun games tonight.
Lynn's favorite,
like
the
what?
bar.
What kind of games?
We're going to have pool tables, beanbag toss, foosball, air hockey,
I love playing
that kind
pool.
of stuff.
Going to play pool with me. Someone's going to play pool with me. I love playing pool. So it's a great opportunity. So we're really appreciative to the exhibitors, and we encourage you to go check out all that they have to offer you.
Yeah. And we have a number of new things, obviously, with Midwest U. You guys obviously made your way down to registration if you're here. A couple other things that are new this year in the kind of the new space that we have. CTC, we started BIM Broadcast over this past year. It's hosted by CTC's own Sean Zerbis, who's running around here someplace. But he'll actually be hosting a number of live streaming interviews, and we focus on emerging technologies and trends within the AEC industry. And so that's certainly a forum that you can check out here at Midwest U, but also on our YouTube channel and the BIM Broadcast website as well. So check that out. We also have a Tech Talk area that's new this year, as well as a sales talk, but who wants to go talk to sales guys, right? So the Tech Talk area is actually staffed by our technical support team. So you can go over there and ask questions. They'd be more than happy to help you out with technical issues that you might have or have come across, or maybe something you heard in a class that you'd like clarified. And it's also staffed by our development staff as well. So definitely take the opportunity, if you've used our Express tools in the past, go over, put a face to the name a little bit, and give us ideas. If you have ways that we could better our tools, or perhaps workflow gaps that could be filled, we want to get those ideas from you so we can consider that and kind of prioritize our development in the future as well. So definitely stop by and meet them there. There's charging stations in that common area right outside the exhibit hall and registration there, so kind of a nice lounge area that we didn't have previously. And one thing I wanted to call out, so last year if you were here, we messed up the schedule on the back of all of your badges, right? And the classes were mixed up. So those are generic now. So now you just have session times.
We didn't mess them up this year.
So we can't mess it up. And so if you are curious where you're supposed to be, there'll be a number of CTC folks that are wearing white CTC shirts. You'll see them walking around. Feel free to ask them, but definitely check the app as well. Everything about this event is on the app, as well as some great opportunities for social interaction as well. So with that, we want to make sure we can get everybody off to the classes on time. And we appreciate you all coming this year. We look forward to our first day at Midwest U. Thank you again.
See you then.